Welcome, Gunrunner.
Hey everybody, Kieran aka the Laird here with another video for you, and this one is a request that some people have asked me to do quite a few times now, and I keep saying I'll get round to it, but I haven't yet. So here we go. So as you can probably already see, I have a massive pile of controllers on my table, and this is what I'm going to be looking at. So it's the controller options for the Atari 7800 console, and first one, of course, will be familiar to Americans. I'm going to start off with the official ones first of all. Is the joystick that came bundled with the American systems, and this gets a lot of stick, excuse the pun, because it's incredibly awkward to use. You have to hold it, the fire buttons on each side, and then use your other hand to move it, and it gives you terrible cramps after a while. It's not a comfortable joystick to use at all. The buttons are pretty unresponsive. You can probably even just see from me pressing them that they don't really click particularly well. It's a really poor joystick. Not sure what they were thinking with the design. It looks quite cool, at least for the silver strip and stuff that matches, but it's just not a good controller to use at all. Now if you're in Europe, like me, you were lucky enough to get one of these instead, which is the Joypad. And obviously they decided to use a Joypad for the PAL machines, I suppose mainly to compete with the NES and the Master System, which both had Joypad controllers as opposed to joysticks. And this is a rather nice design on this. You've got the two buttons with a weird indent in front of them. I'm not sure why, but it looks quite nice. Means your finger rests into them quite nicely. And the other cool thing about this is the actual joypad itself, because as you can see, it's got a stick in there at the moment, but this stick can be unscrewed. So if you prefer to use it as just a pad, you can, and it's quite a nice little pad. It works quite well, very similar to the NES one in many ways. Or if you'd rather have a kind of joystick setup, you can screw it back in, and there you go. And you will find that some games work better with the stick, so that makes it a little bit more accurate, and some work better with the joypad. So these things are very sought after by Americans because they've got the horrible joystick instead, and they tend to fetch quite high prices when you see them on American eBay. They're obviously fairly common in Europe where they were released, and the few times that I've had spare ones and I've put them on eBay for sale, I've always sold them to Americans because they want these so much. I believe you can actually buy them from Atari as well. They have them in stock, but they were worth it. I think they're a lot nicer to use than the NES pad and the Master System pad, which I think both aren't particularly great. So if you want an official option, then this is the way to go really. It's the go-to controller. But also, when it comes to official controllers, you can of course use your old either Atari 2600 ST / Atari 8-bit joysticks. This is one from my XE game system, hence the kind of nice beigey colour. But obviously, because they only have one button, they only will work with games that require one button. So it's great if you're playing 2600 games on your 7800, or some of the games that only use one button. I can't think of any offhand, but there are quite a few. Then obviously that's absolutely fine. And another legacy controller from the 2600 is of course the paddles, and you can obviously still play your old paddle games on the 7800. There was no official 7800 games released that used the paddle controllers, but there have been some homebrew games. There's Super Circus Atari Age uses the paddle controllers, and Arkanoid uses the paddle controllers. There might be more, but those are the two that spring to mind. So you can still use your old paddle controllers as well with the 7800, and the design still matches well enough. The last official controller that I'm going to mention, because it is a controller of sorts, is of course the XC light gun. This, I mean, there was supposed to have been an actual proper 7800 branded gun, which if you look online is bright orange. It's a really horrible colour, but for some reason they never released it officially, and just instead expected you to go and buy the XE gun, which are obviously branded XE system. I think I've just seen some that don't have that at all. They're plain all the way down, but this one is actually the one from my XE game system. But these guns can be used to play like crossbow, barnyard blaster, alien brigade. So there's quite a meltdown. There's quite a lot of good games that use these use the gun, and I think it's a pretty decent gun. A lot of people say it's not particularly accurate, but I would say it's no less accurate than the other light guns around at the time, like the light phaser for the Master System or the Zapper from the NES. I think it's an essential item, but these actually do tend to go for quite a lot of money on their own these days, because the main reason was because they were mostly just bundled with the XE systems, and they were quite hard to find in the shops on their own, and so there's not a lot of them around now. I believe there is another light gun you can get from Best Electronics, but I've never used it, so I can't comment on it. I don't have it. I've never felt the need for it because I have the official Atari gun. So what other options are there? One thing I should mention is there is an adapter. I think it's called the Aladdin adapter, which allows you to use like NES controllers, Mega Drive controllers, stuff like that. And the Mega Drive 3-button control pad is quite a popular choice, or Genesis for you Americans. It's a very comfortable controller, easy to find, very cheap to buy. They work very well, and actually this one I've got here I've actually had modded, so it will work with 2 buttons. So I've got the A and B button. I've also had it modded so the C button as an extra button is up, because there are some games that use, like for example, up for jumping and things like that. So you've actually got an extra choice there for up. So those are a good option, easy to find and good to use. And going back, I haven't got an NES controller here. I think we all know what they look like. But Master System controllers, a lot of people seem to mod these. I've got a couple of examples. This is the official Master System controller, but I hate the squashy joypad on these. It's got so much travel, you can probably even see me pressing it on the video. They're not very accurate at all. They're pretty poor pads, and they're also very small. I've got quite small hands, but even I find these small and awkward to use. This is interesting because this is actually a third-party one, which you'll see is pretty much the same size. It's a Competition Pro. But what's nice about this is it's got a much nicer joypad, as you can see. It's a proper 8-way pad. It's more accurate and more sturdy. But also what's nice about this one is the buttons are angled as well, and it's got these switches. So in many ways actually it's a lot more like the official 7800 pad because of the style of the joypad, etc. But yeah, if you want an auto fire option, it's got that on it. So, but again, like the other one, you'll have to mod these to work. They will not work out the box, despite being 2-button. The pin out and setup is different, so you will have to open them up and switch a few wires around to make them work. But this one is quite a good option if you want a different type of controller. And Competition Pro stuff was always very good anyway, so that's another one to look out for. And the other big sort of joystick manufacturer at the time that produced a lot of 2-button stuff for the Sega consoles, especially over here, was Quickshot. And I think Quickshot will be familiar to most people from the old Quickshot 1 joysticks. This is a Quickshot Professional Arcade controller, I think they called it, and it's nice. You've got a proper arcade style stick with the ball on the top, 2 buttons of course, auto fires for both of them, and you've got this switch, and the interesting thing about the switches is there's one on there, and then if you look on the bottom it tells you, so A is for Atari Commodore. Unfortunately what it means by Atari Commodore though is it'll work with like the 2600 in the ST and the Atari 8-bit, but obviously it won't be 2-button on the 7800, and that's the only setting. Is the D for Sega, is the 2-button setting. So for example, if you're using it with the Sega, you'd stick it to D, but again, like I say, you'd have to mod this to work with the 7800, but it's fairly easy to do. But the interesting thing is, you see it's got one 2-player up there. It's also got 1 and 2 player here on the Switch. And what that is you've actually got 2 plugs on the end. So you can plug it into both sockets at once. So you could actually switch it between you. So if you're playing 2-player game where you needed 2 controllers, it wasn't at the same time, it's one after another. You could use the same controller, just flick that switch and pass it to the other person without taking out the port. And another good thing with that is as well is on the ST, where you've got one is mouse, one is joystick, so you can technically fiddle with that as well, so you don't have to keep unplugging stuff from the bottom of the machine all the time. You can actually plug a splitter in as well and do it that way. But yeah, these are really good, these sticks. I'm a big fan of these. I've actually got a few of them, and I always bring them out at events, and whenever I do, people always say that they're really good and go looking for them on eBay. They're not micro switched or anything, they are just pretty standard sticks, because obviously you can't do a clicking, but they're much more sturdier than the usual style sticks that you find, and they work very, very well. And that's pretty much it, really. I just thought it'd be interesting to look at options, because the Americans especially moan all the time about it's supposed to be called the Pro Line controller, and they call it the Pain Line controller because it's so horrible and awkward to use. And I thought it would be nice to show that there are some other options out there if you own an Atari 7800 and you want to find the games easier to play. And I still think this is the best option. And not just because it's nice to use, but also because it's Atari. And of course, these will work with other Atari machines. I mean, I can use this with my ST. I can use my XE game system if I want to use joypads with that. The only problem being, obviously, the colour doesn't match with those systems, but it's still the best option out there. So I hope you enjoyed my little roundup of controllers. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you all again for another video very soon. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.